Well, we've got another great talk coming up. We've got Adam Winnington, who's going to be talking about how to get people out of your automation. Adam, please take it away.
Thanks, Max. All right, so this is not your classic security talk. What we want to do is talk about device configuration. I know it's not very sexy, but it's a lot of what we do day to day. As security people, we know one of the biggest problems we have is device configuration. It doesn't get updated when the server gets updated or when the server gets decommissioned. If we can free up the time that we have that's spent maintaining device configurations to follow up on other security programs, you can do something boring but productive like patching, or doing some of the other fun things that have been discussed in the other talks today. So you have something on your, you've got programs that will actually work the way you want them to. That you have software that will configure itself based on the correct inputs, right? It will take care of everything the way it's supposed to, and it does it the right way. You've written this software or you've bought the software, it works perfectly in your lab, you're very happy with yourself, all good. Considering that the OWASP project considers ranked security misconfiguration as number 6 of the top 10, this is a great accomplishment. How awesome are you and programs you purchased or wrote? But not so fast. Those changes should still be going through some humans. If you skip this step, you run the risk of getting fired. We don't want you to get fired. So what I want to do for the rest of this talk is talk to you about how we can work with the Change Advisory Board, or the CAB as I'm going to call it for the rest of this meeting, right? And not around it, right? The CAB, it's there for a very good reason. It's there to keep your company making money and keeping them out of the front page of the paper. So we don't want to have that oak poop moment where all of a sudden you're opening your front page of Reddit or the front page of Slashdot, and there's your company because you've been part of a data breach, or the recent Azure you can't log into your O365 breach, or AWS's DNS problem, or pick your problem. You don't want that. So we want to be upfront with CAB and show them that operating your devices with your software, whether it's homegrown or whether it's store-bought, is actually a way to make the overall business risk better, right? Your security posture improves, you're more agile, whatever buzzwords you want to throw at them, throw it at them to make them happy. The first thing we talk to them is pretty self-explanatory. Scripts are not humans. Because CABs are so concerned about the risks involved, taking the human parts of things, so your scripts can't be blackmailed, your scripts can't have a fight with the family, your scripts can't be sick, your scripts can't have gone out partying the night before and come back a little bit hungover and not paying 100% attention to the slides, sorry, to the config that they're typing, right? Once we let CABs know that your programs are not human, this lets us set up a separate pipeline. So hopefully, if you're not the first person to set up a separate CAB approval pipeline for programs, you can go through and work on that, right? So if somebody else has done it for you, please follow their work. Take advantage of the fact somebody's laid the groundwork and blazed that trail, follow through and see where they left off. If you're the first person to talk to your CAB about the fact that this is not a person, but it's a program, be the one to blaze that trail. Show them that your program is optimized for doing the one thing that this change is going to cover. That one thing is something that you have tried and tested over and over again, and you have evidence to show them. You don't want to show them things that fail all the time. You want to show them that it has failed and you've corrected for it. You've gone over your corner cases, you've talked to your subject matter experts, you've talked to the rest of your team. You have a program that does exactly what we need it to do. If it's something as simple as logging into all of the switches and changing the description of the ports to match what the CDP neighbor says, great, tell them that, right? But look at it and explain to them how awesome it is that this program does this repeatedly. It does it on all the models of switches that the company owns, and we're ready to do it. Now, that's not to say programs don't change, right? If the script you have is homegrown, of course it can be changed to do other things. Oops. Right? Once it does other things, but that is a process. We show cab that this is all source controlled. Everything goes into your Bitbucket or to your GitHub or to your GitLab or to wherever you guys store your code. Making a feature request has a Jira ticket next to it. Going through, having branches, testing branches, signing things off into master, doing the appropriate tagging so that way we know that the version of code that is running in production has been thoroughly tested and approved, makes cab very happy. Now, if you're going for bonus points, you can also show cab that if you're using any third-party modules, you have a way to scan those and make sure that they are doing well. Now, once you get approval from cab that you're able to run the program at least once, you start telling them about how these things are going to actually play out in real life. So what are we going to do? We're going to run the program at the same time you would normally be running that change yourself. If you were typing at the keyboard, you're going to run the program at the same time. Now, ideally, you're just having coffee sitting at the keyboard, making sure that everything is fine. But if that means you have to be up at Sunday, 2 a.m. during a full moon, that's when you're going to be up making sure your program does the right thing. And most importantly, if something goes wrong, you are there to catch it live, right? So the cab is already used to accepting these kinds of risks. The fact that you're there to catch it just in case should make them much smoother. Now, the other thing we do, we start by explaining to cab that we're going to start with a very small blast radius. The smallest number of devices we're going to start with is hopefully one, right? And that's hopefully going to be the one that affects you personally or is closest to you. So we're able to work with one device, make whatever change we need to make, demonstrate that it works in production, right, and get things working, and then slowly start to ramp up. Once you get one device working, you're then going to be able to roll it out to 2 devices. Once you have 2 simultaneous devices working, you can roll it out to 5 simultaneous devices, then 10 or 100 or whatever units you like to do. Right? So if your company only has 100 switches, maybe you build up, right? First night you do 1, then 2, then 5, then 10, then 50, right? You have to get it right. So that way everybody is comfortable with the fact that you're getting it right at each time. Maybe you start with the first switch you do is one model. The second switch you do is from a different vendor. The third switch that you do is from the third vendor. Build up that confidence with your cab. Work with them so that way it always goes the way it should. Because sometimes it doesn't always go the way that it should. So what I suggest is your initial deployments to get cab used to the fact that you do have automation is you make some small changes to an existing flow. If you have a load balancer, or if you have something very similar that you can just tweak a little bit, adding a member to a load balancer group, that's a great first script for somebody who's doing cab work. Right? Adding a member to a group on your firewall rules, that's also a great first script. What we want to do is make sure that we're just doing small little tweaks. Right? I'm actually of the opinion that putting a whole new load balancing system in, right? You can script that for sure, but that should actually go through cab on its own, right? You want to create a new website, you want to create a brand new VIP, you want to move the DNS records in, that should go through cab as its own change. Sure, you can automate that, but that goes through cab. But modifying that is something that can be completely automated. Then what you can do is explain to the server operators that when they turn off that server, so that way they're able to go through the script to do their backups or to do their patching, it will automatically be withdrawn from the load balancing group so your end users don't see it. The patch can go through and be tested. And then when they're happy, it can be added back again automatically to the load balancer group. That means you don't have to be up all night. You'll be up all night the first time, but in the long run, this is pretty good. Now, the scary thing is you always have to have a rollback plan. You want to show cab that if something goes wrong, you are prepared. Now, there are 2 types of things that can go wrong that I've found. The first one is you didn't test enough in your corner cases, And in production, there's some weird corner case that you just hadn't planned for. And that's fine. Once we figure out what that corner case is, it will blow up in production. You're there to catch it. You get as much information. Now you're able to catch for that specific corner case. You've got production fixed. You show them that it will never happen again because now you've added it to your testing routine, and away you go. The second thing, though, that is much more dangerous is your sources of data are wrong. So your sources of data say something that you are totally clear to do, but what that actually does is winds up somehow impacting the company from their ability to make money. Right? I don't know about you guys. I really like making money as a company. It's how I get paid. So if the script breaks that, you want to explain to CAB that, hey, not only can I revert my changes, but so can anybody else on my team. So if I go to bed at 3 in the morning, because that's when my change window closes, and somebody detects that there's a problem at 6 in the morning, they can call anybody on my team and have those people on the team be able to execute the rollback steps that are required to get them going. To show CAB how easy that is, I've actually in the past made a video of the change being made on the device and the rollback procedure and how easy it was. So that way CAB can be really happy with the fact that, yes, this is a very complicated change, but really we're executing 2 commands, go and restore, right? Once we have CAB's buy-off on that, life is good. Now, as Darth Vader would say, I find your lack of test disturbing. We want to have tests. Now, when you're changing people's devices, you hopefully, if you're lucky, you have a test lab. If you're really unlucky, your test lab is also your production environment, but we do what we can. But what we can do is within our scripts, within our programs, we can test. So if your job for that change is to go through and make sure that, let's say you grant somebody access to an external website. Maybe what you do is before you start your script, you have a check. Curl tries to connect to that external website, make sure that it fails. Then you run your program. Then you run your check again. Curl goes to the same external website and it passes. If it doesn't, that should kick up an error to somebody. And that way they're able to look at it and make sure that everything goes smooth once it's been restored. Now, these type of tests and this type of evidence doesn't have to be within your device. It can be within your script. It can be within the device itself. So what we can do is we can rely on the device's internal audit logs to show that something has gone well. So you can take a look at the audit logs themselves to validate that if you were deleting something, it has been deleted and removed. Now, we don't want to be sneaky about this. When we're trying to create a new pipeline for changes through CAB for automated things, we want to be way more communicative than normal. What we want to do is we want to send our usual emails out to our team, but we want to make sure that our automated scripts don't step on somebody else's changes. That actually makes them very angry, and they'll start putting roadblocks in your way so that way you don't get CAB's approval as easily as you should. So we're going to over-communicate. Communicate to your team, but when your work is done, go through and communicate to the people who might also have changes that same night. Say, hey, what I've done has been completed. Here's some evidence if you need it, or you can always call me and we can talk about the changes if you think that my changes from my script have somehow impacted your change. Right? So having that evidence is golden. Now, I've talked about sources of truth, right? And this is surprisingly tricky. In most changes, what we have is tribal knowledge, and the way the wind is blowing dictates how the actual change is executed. Is this device part of the web server group? Is this device part of this application, right? If we're looking and relying strictly on tribal knowledge, then yeah, you guys can do the right thing. But what we want to do is find somebody who's got an authoritative list. The odds of one person having one giant authoritative list are pretty low. So what I found is that I can usually pin down the authoritative list on the websites is good. The authoritative list for each application is good. The authoritative list from different People come from different spaces. Now what we can do is we can show CAB that we're making decisions based on people who have those authoritative lists. Now, hopefully those aren't Excel files, but they're something that's API-able. But if that's what they are, that's what they are. You've got a list, it's been signed off on, then we can start making interesting decisions. Now with those golden pieces of truth, we're now able to make some logical decisions. If this server is in this LDAP group, then I can do this. If this person is in this LDAP group, then I can do this. Making sure that your script is able to make decisions based on sources of truth help things go smoother when somebody goes through and says, hey, your program made a mistake. You go, oh, great, my program made a mistake. Awesome. Let's fix that, first of all, and then let's find out what went wrong, right? Usually what happens is we find out that something went wrong because our sources of truth aren't quite as golden as we had hoped. So that makes things a little more awkward, but in the long run, it will make your scripts run better and better and better. So wrapping up, I know this was nice and short, right? We want to go through, have lots of testing, right? Programs are less risky because they don't change. Programs are less risky because they do thorough testing for you, right? We have a rollback plan. We're able to make modifications, but we make modifications through a process that's been approved, right? We're able to monitor our changes to make sure that they go through at the right time, and you're there to make sure they don't go crazy. We're going to get as much evidence as we can in our scripts, and we're going to make sure that we notify people of the change and the results of our change. So thanks to the BSides crew for letting me talk. Thanks for you guys for listening. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but there we go.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for the talk, Adam. There's a question that came in, and that is, typically you can detect the change does not meet functional requirements within the same change window. How do you detect within the change window that the change has or has not created a new security vulnerability within your production system?
Let's see, this is why we add small changes, right? So what we're doing is we will be increasing or decreasing stuff based on the request of the flow. So ideally, we're adding a new server to a flow that comes from that golden source of truth. So we may be increasing the security vulnerabilities because somebody asked us to, right? Adding a new server to the load balancing group does inherently add another server that's internet accessible. But we can, if somebody's really concerned about that, we can say that before we make our changes, we can do a vulnerability scan on those servers before they get added to the golden list. All right, so that's one way you can do that to avoid making anything horribly go wrong.
Yep, great. And all this new advances and infrastructure as code and DevOps pipeline stuff. There's lots of tooling and stuff to be added there, which meshes in with this. One more question came in just while I was stalling. That is, typically you can detect that the change. Sorry, I think that's a rephrasing of the same question. My mistake.
Yeah, sorry, my timer says in 2 minutes over, so I tried to rush it.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. You did a great job. Yeah, I think this talk and the next talk mesh really well. So we appreciate this, and yeah, by all means, join into the Discord. People loved your GIF game. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time trying to find the right memes. There we go. That's the one thing everybody will take away. We'll be able to steal GIFs.
Well, personally, I'm all for getting people out of the way to get stuff done and be more helpful.
That's the hard part, man. When things scale up, doing it onesie or twosies doesn't work, right? In small organizations, and it really doesn't work in giant organizations. So, yeah.
All good. So thanks again for coming on to our BSides and being part of our grand experiment. I'll let you get into the Discord and ask the other questions and get the next speaker ready, which is at 3:30.